Welcome back to Beyond the Buckets. I'm happy to have another fabulous guest here, Tacie, Avedikian. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Did I say your last name correctly?
You did. Avedikian. I feel like it looks harder than it is, but it's an Armenian last name. So hopefully the IA and everyone kind of just takes a stab and it's close enough for sure.
Definitely. Well, I'm excited to tap into, your journey and how you can really help others. I mean, that's the reason why we started this show over a year ago. But why don't we start off with a fun fact about yourself, something that even if they might know you, they wouldn't know. So.
Oh my goodness. A fun fact. I have a few. Well, a few that I think that no one typically knows. My grandfather started David and Sons, well, my great grandfather, David and Sons sunflower seeds, which are, eaten at how many sporting events? So that's kind of, I don't know about basketball games though, since they're mostly indoors. Were you guys sunflower seed fans?
Not indoors, but definitely at any outdoor sporting event. Yeah.
Yes. And my family actually still owned the business until I was 2 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So that's a fun fact that I don't really share very often.
And what's your favorite flavor?
Oh gosh, I mean the flavors have completely changed over time. So I mean, just the original is my go-to.
I was a baseball player growing up as well. That was actually my best sport, but I always had sunflower seeds in my mouth at all times when playing baseball. And your family was, basically consumed so much throughout my childhood.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see, the sports of baseball being the one that the sunflower seeds gravitated towards and just seeing them around still. It's fun.
Yeah. So why don't you give everybody a 2 to 3 minute background story on you and how you became who you are now?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, just like you said, Tacie, Avedikian, I work for Little Bird Marketing. I've actually been in marketing for, over a decade, which I hate to admit. But my primary focus was market research. So I work with companies and agencies to really understand the market, what people want, what people, need, the direction to go, what might be going wrong, even just how employees are feeling within companies. So any important question that they felt like might need to be answered, I worked with them to get the answers from their consumers. Mm-hmm. And I love that because I am a total people person. I love just interacting and building relationships and meeting new people. So it was fascinating. And as the pandemic hit, it really changed things. And I started to see a big shift in how consumers were doing work and how B2B companies are interacting with each other. And I just thought there has to be a way that this cannot seem so stressful for everybody. And me being a mom, I mean, it was stressful for me, working primarily remote, not being able to travel, not having face-to-face interaction. And so my goal just became, how can I make these connections using, doing things that I love, making the relationships, helping people answer questions, helping people get connected and, still get returns on their investments. And so I shifted over to Little Bird Marketing, where I am now the VP of digital culture.
Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I want to double click on a few different things that you touched on. One, throughout the last 16, 17 months, we've seen a huge difference in how B2C has worked. How we consume goods now is completely different than what we used to do. And businesses had to really pivot and make sure that they were in a place that their consumer can still purchase their products. So, pre-COVID, it was one way. Post-COVID, it was a completely different way. What have you seen in that B2C type of discussion?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, the way that we did things before, people always say, oh, when things go back to normal. It's like, I don't know if there really is going to be a back to normal as we knew it before, because there's just been such a mind shift over this long period of time that we didn't anticipate. Right. But what I'm seeing from consumers is just that their desire or their gravitation, I guess you could say, towards online resources. Everything has just gone digital, especially, once we were locked in, if you lived at home or if you lived alone, I mean, there was really no way for you to interact, or even a lot of people weren't even going to the store. So everyone's initial reaction was to start shopping online. As we saw stores going for delivery and curbside pickup. And there's research that shows consumers are more than halfway through their decisions or their buying process before the company they're buying from is even aware that they're in the market. Right. But I mean, even myself, I'm an avid Amazon shopper, but of course I read all the reviews. I look at all the review photos, or I ask my friends, my coworkers, have you tried this or what's that? We are relying on our relationships in our buying process and the reviews of people that, we don't even know, but they're building our trust by sharing their thoughts on these products. And so the consumer buying process just in general and how they're doing things has totally moved from kind of that, sales focus or just like, oh, I saw that on a commercial, I'm going to buy it, or that person reached out to me, to wanting to actually buy with purpose and empathy and knowing that someone else is using that and it's working for them.
Right. And just the ease of access to, if I order something on Amazon right now, in the area that I live in, there's very high likelihood of it being delivered tomorrow. So one of the times I ordered in the morning, it came that evening. I was shocked by how quick these things are readily available now, and just makes it so easy for the consumer to consume. And it ends up allowing you to buy more and more because it's so convenient. Whereas if I go to Costco, we go to Costco maybe once a month, and it's a longer shopping experience, but they have really everything you want. But I don't want to go to Costco every week, and so utilizing these other platforms like Amazon, which is a big hit in our household, makes it so much easier. How have businesses gone to other businesses as far as their marketing? So that I can definitely see the difference from the B2C, but B2B has also changed too. What have you seen in your expertise?
Yeah, with B2B, I've seen a lot of digital transformation as far as taking their salespeople and having them go more online because they can no longer have that coffee chat or set up that dinner meeting. They really need to build those relationships virtually, and Zoom meetings aren't going to be the only thing that cuts it. So a lot of businesses are having to build their influence and their credibility via online platforms, social media. Clubhouse has become a huge tool in the last 6 months. TikTok at the beginning of quarantine even, and now is really big. Businesses are trying to figure out how they can access those tools and utilize those tools to build their influence with B2B, not only to reach their consumers, but to keep up with what their competitors are doing, to see if there's vendors out there that they could work with that are in their market and anything like that. Businesses have really had to do a mind shift.
Yeah. And what do you say to those that have been stuck in their ways for so long? And obviously, if you don't adapt, at some point evolution will take over, and you're not going to be around anymore. And so many businesses have worked one way for so long. So introducing them to these new technologies, whether it be TikTok or StreamYard or Zoom or any of these things that are going on, or Clubhouse, which is huge, and I get texts and emails from people, hey, you got to get on Clubhouse, but I still haven't done it, and maybe I'm just behind the curve. But how do you get these decision makers to input these new things into their marketing strategy?
It can be tough. Some companies come with an open mind, which is great. That's what you need because they know in order to stay ahead, they're going to have to pivot and keep up. But then, of course, you have those companies that are more stuck in their ways. What they've been doing is successful. And so why do they want to change it? But when you show them the case studies and just give them the real, think of Kodak, Toys R Us, Blockbuster, the companies who were at the forefront of what it was that they were doing that in an instant were no longer viable in our environment of, how we're buying things. And I think that really starts to resonate with them. Okay, is that, if I'm a clothing company and I don't have a website or a way of shipping, am I going to put myself in one of those categories like those companies that I just shared? And the chances are yes. I mean, you really are. If you don't have the outlets that people are actually using, you're not just going to be the one company that makes it likely by sticking to what you are already doing. I totally didn't want to interrupt you because I'm sure what you said was amazing, but you've muted yourself.
Yeah. I'll have to cut that
I
out.
mean, it looked like you were really going for it, and I know I was right on the same page, but you muted
Well,
yourself.
I'll have to edit that one out. But I wanted to double click on the one thing that you talked about on how industries are changing overall. Think about Netflix and what Blockbuster used to be. Blockbuster used to be a frequent of our family every Friday night. We would go get movies, we would go get popcorn, we would go get some, snacks, all from Blockbuster.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now that's directly into your home. And it used to be on a DVD that they shipped out, and they now made it to a streaming service. There's so many different streaming services. What's next? Is cable even going to be a thing? I know now that YouTube has their own platform, and there's Tubi and all these other platforms that may be taken away from the regular advertisement that you would see. I don't watch commercials anymore because we DVR things that we want to watch and then we fast forward. The only live thing that we watch is sports. And so there's so many things that have taken place over the years. And if you don't get in front of it, you're going to put yourself in a situation where you're now trying to play catch up. And I think that is a very vulnerable place for businesses that want to continue to thrive because there's so many businesses that are no longer in place just in the last 15 years, and it seems like it was like that before before they were extinct. So tell me about trying to stay in front of the curve and how you help your clients do that.
Yeah, and I mean you're exactly right. I laugh all the time with my husband at my kids, and they're like, "What happened to the show? Where did it go?" And it's like it's a commercial, or it's only one episode. It's not a whole continuum. You can't binge watch this one. You have to wait until next week.
Right.
So that makes me laugh because it really is what's convenient. That is where things are going. And so to stay, ahead of things, obviously we're doing a lot of research. Mostly because we want our clients to know that we're not just guessing. We're not just trying to give you quick tips and tricks on, how to become an influencer or how to make your YouTube video hit 10,000 likes. We want to be giving businesses and people the resources and the data that shows what it is that actually needs to be done for them to move their business forward. And so I think that is really something that has been helpful because we can show that quantitative and qualitative piece and those firsthand experiences. And another thing that we do is, think about just trying to put ourselves in the different positions. And, that helps a lot when talking to consumers. Just what is it that we're seeing? What is it that we're hearing? And then digging into those ourselves, looking at research people have already done about write-ups that are happening from social media platforms and the different types of websites. And what is it that is working well for certain industries? And we definitely don't want to encourage everybody to be on every platform because it doesn't mean that, your audience is there. We want you to do what's beneficial for your company and for your time and not, have you build out a Facebook to get 200 fans over a year. I mean, it's just not worth it. So just ensuring that the focus is strategic and not just kind of like, okay, well, everything's gone digital, so we need a Facebook and an Instagram and a TikTok and all these things. It's like you can go digital, but still be strategic and your business will continue to thrive.
Yeah. I own two businesses, and just as a selfish question, because I want to make sure that we're doing all the things that we need. So for small businesses, 50 or less employees, what do you think are some of the most important things? And you can generalize, it doesn't have to be specific by industry, but what are some of the important keys when working on your marketing plan or, marketing to your consumers? What sort of things should be included?
I mean, one of the first things is just the personal brand and influence that as the president or founder of your companies, of your small businesses carry, and then that influence and brand that you allow your employees to carry. Because when people are finding them, especially online, you want them to see a good company culture, a company who knows who they are and is advocating for that. And then I think allowing just them to have a voice and build up their relationship. I think I'm trying to put my visual into words, but when I see a company and it's just a small company and I see that the founder, as well as all the employees are engaging on social media, are active, they're being shared about on the company website. And I see that the company is an advocate for them and they're an advocate for the company, and they have a lot of people interacting with them because of that.
Yeah.
That is what builds the credibility of a business for marketing. It's that whole authenticity and culture, which I know people are like, oh, those are buzzwords right now, which maybe they are, but the culture of a company is so important. Knowing who your company is, and then also understanding who your audience is, not just going out there and thinking, oh, I'm going to say something and it's going to appeal to everyone, regardless of their demographic. Having an idea of who your ideal persona is, the client persona that you want to reach, because the voice that you use for each of those personas is not going to be the same.
For sure. And how often should communications be going out, whether it be, let's just use a couple of ideas. One would be email marketing. How often is too often? I get so many spam emails almost daily from, companies that we've purchased from, and it's like, I'm going to unsubscribe because it happens too often. Daily posts on Instagram or Facebook, how much is probably like the right pocket, and this can vary obviously depending on the industry. And then, what else, whether it be Twitter, whether it be LinkedIn, how many touch points should you be looking for daily in general?
Yeah, it definitely varies. And it's funny, unsubscribing is like my favorite pastime when I have an extra few minutes. My kids always laugh at me because I'm like, oh, let me go through your emails and unsubscribe from the spam ones. But I like to see what people are trying to do as, their marketing pieces and which ones are just real spammy. But it does vary because it just depends on your audience. And that's why it's so important to understand your company, your value proposition, and who your key demographic is. Because like I said, you don't need to be doing an email send every single day. If you're not getting a response, if you're not making sales from it, if you're not getting a single reply, then why continue to put time into that and waste resources if it's not moving the needle forward? And the same goes with social media. For me, when I think of social media, I almost, even on LinkedIn, it's like, that's my personal brand. It's who I am. I'm not just out there to pitch my company or, pitch what it is that we're selling. I'm showing, who I am within the company, what my family is doing from time to time. I'm creating that relationship and the connection it's authentic and it's on a deeper level. It's not, surface level where I'm just constantly saying, oh, let's come to Little Bird Marketing. Oh, do you need digital advertising? Oh, do you want to be on this podcast? It's, what is it that makes a podcast great? It's getting feedback. It's soliciting that feedback. And, from your network, what's the point of having a network if you aren't going to actually try and build the connection between you guys? So I think those are important aspects.
Yeah. One of the things that has worked out really well, especially by doing this podcast, is I thought LinkedIn was just a place where you would look for jobs, and I've never really had to look for jobs in my entire career post college. I've known somebody that's always gotten me the next opportunity, and LinkedIn has been fantastic for marketing. I had the CEO of Felice Insurance where I used to work before I went off. His name is Ron Felice, one of the best people in the entire world. Like I love that guy. And he could sell water to a whale.
That's amazing.
But my former coworker posted the video of our little teaser, and it got like 5,000 views on LinkedIn. He's like, look, your video with Ron is going really well. I said, wait, there's 5,000 views on LinkedIn already? And he's like, yeah. I was like, wow, I need to get on LinkedIn. He's like, oh yeah. So I started
Yeah.
putting everything on there and started building my network on LinkedIn. And the really great thing about it is, nobody, well, I haven't seen it anyway. Not too many people are trying to sell each other. They're really trying to better each other. And how can I help you? And in turn, it might help you later on, but people that are like-minded like to be around like-minded people. And this whole podcast for me has been a selfish thing. I'm getting the best of Tacie. I'm getting the best of every single guest, and now I'm adding little things that I can help benefit myself and the other people that are in my circle. But LinkedIn has been great. Talk about how people are using LinkedIn in so many great ways.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like you hit it right on the head. Everyone thinks of LinkedIn as, a resume site, something you put together when you're looking for a job. But LinkedIn has expanded into this huge social platform in its own. It's not going to be, one of those places where someone shares the sandwich that they had for lunch, which thankfully, is it's not the realm that they want to be in. But I mean, just the amount of connection and the way that you can interact with people directly. I mean, from CEOs to, presidents of companies, it's a different interaction and it's direct. You don't have those companies that are just posting from their marketing team all day long, and just not even responding to the posts or to the comments or engaging whatsoever. And you have people out there sharing information, not just about, what it is that they do, but their experiences. We're all in the same boat. We love to say, our CEO here, Priscilla McKinney, she has coined the term, collaboration is the new competition. Because, before we were all sitting siloed in our offices, and now it's like we're all at home siloed from each other. So we're having to rely on these relationships that we wouldn't have thought about before. So now I'm connecting with people all digitally that I would have never had the chance to, or even imagine that it might be a good fit.
Right.
And I have virtual besties that I've never even actually met, but we've connected on so many different levels. And most of them have never actually bought from me, but they have referred me out just from our small chats or hopping on and having coffee or texting and checking in. The relationship that is being built on LinkedIn is totally different. And the areas that are using it, I mean, marketing, of course, is still using it, but HR, because I mean, it is a place where you can find talent, and then it's not just a resume that they're looking for anymore. It's, how are they holding themselves on LinkedIn? Are they actually being interacted with? Are they sharing content that's good? Do they say, are they doing things that they say they are?
Right.
But I mean, all departments, sales, especially, without being slimy, if you're not the one sending that sales email, like, oh, Chris, thanks for connecting today. This is what I sell and you should buy it because it would be great. Those are the ones, if they're doing that, they're not doing LinkedIn right. But, just letting people know just what options are out there and building your influence of, who you are and your company as kind of a after effect of that.
Right.
LinkedIn has just completely bloomed.
Yeah, and you're 100% right on. There's a bunch of people on there that are immediately trying to sell you without providing any value beforehand, and not even trying to even start a relationship. You have to, number one, provide value. So a lot of times there's so much free content that really great salespeople put out there and show their value. You're giving somebody multiple pieces of content to help them potentially, and later on it might pay off for you, but in the moment it might not, but later on it will. And I think that's a very key important part of networking. I try to never ask for anything right off the bat. I think you can have equal lanes, like you're helping out with this podcast and hopefully it gets your name out there. If it reaches 2,000 people, great. Well, 2,000 people were able to listen to you and potentially buy because they had a they had an hour listening to you and they say, Tacie, I really like your marketing approach. Maybe you can help our company, or maybe you might not be able to help their company, but somebody else's company. And that's really kind of how it works. And the last thing you talked about, you have some besties on the program. And I'm the same way. Like, I've met so many people based on LinkedIn and being open to a conversation. Hey, you want to have a 15-minute chat? Yeah. And sometimes the conversation goes nowhere, but sometimes it does go places. In just you'll see the business world is just like the sports world, is very small, and you can make connections very easily, and you never know what that next connection is going to lead to.
Yeah, and I mean, not to completely pivot, but just thinking about LinkedIn in general from my own perspective, when the pandemic hit, being a mom of kids that are now completely at home and having, as a salesperson, key performance indicators that I'm supposed to be meeting. And as much as my company wants to, say they can pivot, like our sales goals, they really can't, because they're based on, how that all works being in sales. And I mean, going digital, I never imagined how much it would allow me to still achieve what I, even probably more than I would have achieved being out in the field, and still giving me the time with my kids. And I don't anticipate that I'll even travel half as much as I did before, because now I know that it can be done,
Right.
Online through these different types of relationships, and people are still willing to buy from me, or what it is that I offer, or work with me, and I don't have to go and buy them dinner, or send them gifts, or of course those things are fun and nice, and I want to meet people, and I will, but knowing that as a mom, seeing all these women that are leaving the workforce with COVID because they can't juggle both, it's like, how could I make that better for other moms, and it's like going digital and being able to share how to strategically do it, then, will hopefully allow other moms to stay in their job,
Yeah.
and just be just as successful online.
When do you think it is appropriate to meet in person? Where there's some things that are just so much better in person. Like, my wife and our friends, we went to a comedy show recently, and watching comedy on TV on a special and being there is just so completely different. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
my face still hurts from laughing so much because it was sore really the next day, honestly. Um, but there's certain things in life that are very personal by being in a group. And things are opening up, which has been fantastic as well. When do you think those moments, being in front of people, are going to be the most paramount? Because you can do most of the things remotely now, but there are some things that may be better suited for a more personal, face-to-face sort of conversation.
Yeah, and I don't think face to face will ever go away. I mean, I am totally a social person, and being face to face is something that I love. And conferences, getting to go to marketing conferences or research conferences, and knowing that there's going to be people there that I can interact with are huge for me. And I haven't been able to go to one in over a year, and I actually get to go to one in a couple of weeks. So it's like I'm so excited, and that will be a face to face interaction that I get to have. And I think that when it's the right fit, face to face is a totally different feeling. Even though you and I are here talking, and it's fun and it's casual, and we're getting along great. I mean, being in person is just a different vibe. It's a different connection. And so I think if it's going to be a long lasting relationship, or a client that you're working with over time, you absolutely want to try and get out there and meet them as often as you can. But when it comes to the prospecting piece of it, as things get closer, and you're still trying to seal a deal, then I would definitely, if they're willing to take you, welcome you face to face, then I would say, as the added last piece, definitely put yourself out there. But for me, and for what I'm seeing, you don't have to, travel that 3 or 4 times to a meeting during just the prospecting phases to win the deal. You are able to build that relationship prior, and you really have already, if you're using digital and social platforms strategically, the relationship has already been built much more than it would have been on your first face-to-face meeting anyways, initially. So I mean, face-to-face is always going to be important. I just don't think it's going to be the closing factor in business like it used to be.
Right. Um, Talking about being in sales and being a woman, one of my mentors, her name is Cindy Smith. She was one of the best salespeople I've ever met. and she immediately would make a connection with whoever. We were dealing with human resource folks most of the time. So, they're not mostly concerned about the money. The owners, the CFOs are usually concerned about the money, but the HR personnel is not. They're worried about the employees. So whether she was talking to the CEO or whether she was talking to the director of human resources, she would know how to get to where she needed to get to in order for them to trust her. And number one, her knowledge was through the roof about anything and everything. Number two, she was able to build some rapport. She would look up in there, oh, you have kids. Oh, you play soccer. Oh, my son plays soccer at Cal, blah, blah, blah. And they would go into that where she was finding something that they could really touch on, so that trust was built. Um, Talk about some of those ways that you might utilize your gifts, talents, and abilities to reach your clientele.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a perfect example of how you should be building a relationship based on, who the person is making that connection or offering them something, some, little string that they could pull of relatability to you. And I think that's where I even get most of my clients from is just literally sharing about who I am and my life in general. And from there, and building relationships. And, when I go on LinkedIn or when I'm on social media, I am a meaningful connection, and I try to be that way so that I am not doing, what it is that I don't like people to do to me when I'm on a social platform. So, if I've connected with someone and we haven't had the opportunity to interact in any way on a platform or have a phone call or anything like that, I'll reach out to them and say, hey, we haven't had the chance to connect. I would love to understand more about what you do. I know we've connected here socially, but let's have a quick coffee call for 15 minutes. And if you promise not to pitch me, I promise not to pitch you. And people have just been really responsive to just asking for a meeting like that,
Right.
because it's not, and it's really, most of them leave without me ever even saying what it is I do. But you mentioned this earlier, and they're like, well, this has been, so great talking to you. How can I help? How could I be of help in your life? Or
Right.
how can I help you on this digital culture journey that you're leading? People are just so open to wanting to help each other. If you are, reciprocating and you're being kind about it, and you're not being, just that slimy salesperson.
Yeah.
You're showing a little bit of who you are. And so, when I post on my social media, or when I think about the things that I'm doing digital, writing blog posts, or, even joining podcasts, I have to think about who I am and who I am in my career, and how that all plays together. I don't want to, project somebody that I'm not, so that when we do meet in person, they're like, oh, you're nothing like your Zoom call or that blog you shared, or, I want them to get the same thing, which I think a lot of people really steered clear from before is, relating personal to business. And there's a safe space to do it. I mean, you don't want to overdo it, but there is a safe way to do that.
Right.
It's just been really successful.
Talk about being a mother and being extremely busy with your profession. It's got to be difficult at times, but you've been able to manage it with your two beautiful young girls. So
Yes.
tell me about that process.
Oh my goodness. Well, my number one management tool has been the Margaritaville I purchased on Prime Day at the start of
Yeah,
the pandemic.
there you go.
It's been amazing. No, I think that, it's been tough, and I am not going to lie. I ended up joining a new company right at the start of the pandemic, and my kids are now home, and I was totally the mom with the schedule. And we had a neighbor that picked them up and took them to practice, and they were at soccer and they were at dance and they were doing this, and all of a sudden they had nothing to do. And I was, writing all the Excel sheets of, this is what you need to do by this time, and it just wasn't realistic. And I had plenty of meltdowns. They had plenty of meltdowns. But for me, it was just trying to find that balance, and just how am I going to be able to do that? And I was fortunate enough to just be in an industry and a career that's flexible. Most of my clients are out of state or, some distance from me anyway. So I have a pretty good idea of working remote. So that was more of a seamless transition for me. But having my kids, there's plenty. I literally have a sign, I'm looking at my door that says, like, do not enter unless you are exceptions, and it says blood and choking. And my daughter's like, what's blood choking? I'm like, oh my gosh, like, we're a year into this pandemic and we're still trying to figure things out. And it has not been easy, but I think there's been a lot more awareness on how hard motherhood and parenting really is. Just mental health in general, even, in industries that I never imagined would bring up mental health or self-care or, all of these things, which, I mean, the pandemic has been a bummer. We've been shut down and it's been tragic, and there's been lots of opinions on it, but I mean, it really has opened up doors and communication in areas that just weren't communicated before. And so hopefully, there's more resolutions to things like that, and people are able to get the mental help that they need and focus on self-care and feel more comfortable about sharing when they're struggling. At the start of the pandemic, I'm losing my mind, and the only person that I can cry to is my husband, and he's like, okay, but then as I started working remote and more people were coming online, I was making new relationships, I realized, there's tons of other women who are feeling just as stressed out as I am with the situation, and who have ideas on how to make it better, or, I've done this to make it better. Does this work for you? And it's like just cultivating these groups and these conversations that I, again, would have never had before. But I mean, just basically making a whole new network, a virtual network of moms and other women and parents that are all in the same boat.
Right. What do you do to decompress? For me, it's working out every single day, and if I can get that hour to myself, I'm a better husband, I'm a better father, I'm a better boss, I'm a better coach. All of those things make me better. When I don't do it, I'm more irritable. I'm definitely don't have the same liveliness, or I would call it juice. But that's the one thing for me, other than the morning coffee. But yeah, what are some things that you do for that self-care?
Yeah, I am an avid reader, but I try to steer clear of the workbooks when it comes to just, my personal self-care. And I'll get into like the Hunger Games series or whatever the teeny bopper, like popular book series is. And of course I read, other things too, but I love to read a book. I could literally go through a 500-page book in a day if I had the time. And then I also, because of, everything shut down, I actually, the start of the pandemic, saved up for a bit and got a Peloton, which I never thought I would actually use. And I laugh about it all the time that it doesn't have a place to put my snacks or my chocolate bar while I'm riding it. But it really has been a fun thing to have. And it doesn't feel really like working out. I mean, it is working out, but there's just different people on there, and it's funny to see what they're saying and what the teachers are saying. And I've really enjoyed having that.
Yeah, the Peloton's great. We have one. We actually created a home gym in our garage, so now it's just a full gym. But the Peloton's a part of it, and I love the Peloton. I'm gonna get on it after this for about 30 minutes or an hour. It makes it so easy to not make excuses. If you got 20 minutes, you can ride the Peloton for 20 minutes. Like sometimes I'll put, we have a TV in there, so I'll just put something on that I want to watch if I don't want to listen to the instructor, or I'll listen to a podcast, or I even got the computer thing up there, so you could put your computer on there. So
is that like an attachment?
Yeah, you can get that on Amazon. Just type in computer,
okay,
something on Amazon. You'll be able to find it.
Yeah.
But, it's just a little attachment that goes right on. You have to put your knees down a little bit lower, but if you want to get some work done on the Peloton, you definitely can. And it's a great way to decompress. So I would agree with you.
Yeah, it's amazing. And with the app now, or as the whole quarantine lockdown has progressed, they've come out with so many more things. And so there are times where we'll just, like you said, project it on the TV, and my girls and I will be like, oh, let's do a yoga class. And we know nothing about yoga, but it's, it's still self-care, and it's also fun for them and time that we get to spend together. So I've enjoyed that there's other ways to exercise besides just sweating my brains out on that bike ride.
For sure. There's been a lot of companies that have thrived. Obviously, Peloton is one of them. Amazon is one of them. But they were in the right place at the right time and pivoted where they needed to. And that makes that makes for a good marketing strategy and a great company. So I'm interested to see, how Peloton continues to do as they, those instructors are a high value, right? Because if
Right.
I'm one of those instructors, you see that, there's 100,000 people watching my class. Well, that holds a lot of value and weight. And I know a lot of them are starting to do other things. Like I believe Ali Love is working
Mm.
for the New York or the Brooklyn Nets, and she does a bunch of different things. So how long is she going to stay there? Because a talented individual like that may have way more opportunities other than just Peloton. And how are they going to be? I wonder what their compensation is for
Yeah.
them doing those classes.
But yeah, but I mean, that's a prime example right there of the personal brand she has built for herself within that company. Of course, allowing your employees and your team to build a personal brand, you hope that they won't, leave and do something else. But then you also can look at it from the standpoint of, I mean, she was literally able to make such a big name for herself through Peloton. And Peloton is such a responsive company that they could bring in another, nothing against the instructors they have now. I laugh all the time out loud while I'm doing the workout, the things they say. But, because of the brand that they've built as a company and the support that they give to those instructors, I mean, they could bring someone else in with their strategy of, how they hire and, get them probably up to that level too. And just how they are as a company and how they're building their employees. So hopefully that's, something that helps them. But,
Yeah.
more power to her too for being able to build that personal brand and by being who she is and doing what she loves.
Right. What do you think their split is? Like, how many viewers have to, like, do you get an increase in pay, you think? Or how does that work? Because, the subscription for each one of us is what, $50 a month? And, the bikes are obviously pretty expensive too. But I would say you would have to have something in place to where however many viewers, you're going to be getting compensated for that.
I know. It's funny. My sister and I were actually it's been a couple months now, but when we were first getting into the whole Peloton thing, I'm like, what if they got $1 for every person that watched? Because you're right, they have so many views. And could you imagine making $100,000 or, whatever it may be in 2 hours just because of how many people came in? I honestly I have no idea how they work it out, but I mean, and maybe it's like actors, over time they get royalties or, even if it's an old class, if someone goes back and rides it.
Right.
I know they have like the in-ride reviews. So maybe as long as you have a 5-star review or, something like that. But I'd be curious. I bet we could probably Google it and
Yeah.
get an idea. But yeah, it'd be interesting for
But
sure.
you're right because before the Peloton, they used to have all these Soul Cycle classes that my wife go to in either San Francisco or Palo Alto. They recently got one in San Jose right before the pandemic. But there was a gentleman that I forget his name, but he had such a following. He had like over 100,000 followers on Instagram, and he just had so many people that really enjoyed his classes. I even took one of them. I didn't like so I'm a coach, but sometimes I don't like to be coached. And this was my first time there, and I wasn't a cycler. Now I guess you could say that I'm a cycler because I ride the Peloton a lot, and we have a bike, an actual physical bike. But he came over and tried to turn my resistance up, and
Oh.
I didn't really like that too much because that was to me my rear end was hurting so bad because I didn't have the padding thing, and that was the
Mm-hmm.
first time I had ridden like a bike for an hour, and I'm sitting there drenched in sweat, and he comes and turns my thing up, so I didn't really care for that. But I say all that to say this: once that stopped, he moved to Austin, Texas. He created his own gym, and he has such a following that a lot of people are now going to his gym because he built this platform using the Soul Cycle umbrella. But he was a talented and gifted person, and that transcended to him. He had a personal brand under this umbrella of a big company, and now it's working for him.
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with drive too. Even thinking about sports, if he could have that job and he could be great at it, but the fact that he wanted to continue to share his passion to make people healthier gave him that drive to want to make his own thing. Just like, in sports, we're dealing with my daughter right now. She's 11 and she plays soccer. And it's like the only thing she's really ever enjoyed playing out of everything she's tried, but she never wants to practice. Like, well, you can't just be on a team and, regardless if you make the team after tryouts or whatever, if you're not going to practice, it's not fair to the whole team. She's like, so she doesn't have the drive to be a soccer player, even though she's good at it. She just wants a spot on the team. And I feel like that actually, that type of ambition and drive comes into play with your career and how you build out, that brand for yourself.
Well, yeah, for sure. And I think the two things that you can always control your energy and your effort. So if you have great energy, some of the best salespeople have fantastic energy. And it's like you mentioned earlier, being authentic to them. It's not this fake energy where you can understand like, oh yeah, this is the act, but that authentic enthusiasm for what you do. And if you really enjoy what you do, you can inspire others to be motivated because of your passion and your love for it. And some people can be talented in something. And I know that I've either played for coaches or seen coaches. You can be very talented as a coach, but if you don't have that juice and you don't have that passion, it's going to be very difficult to transcend others. And that's what great leaders have. They have that natural energy that really exudes beyond, it just really exudes like confidence and just preparation and all those things coming together, which make for a really great experience.
Yes, definitely. It's exactly true. So we'll see how much we go forward with soccer.
Yeah, but yeah, you're or maybe one of the books that I read in the last year, I was trying to read 50 books. I don't know if I don't know if I'm on pace anymore because things got really, really busy once things started opening up. But The Talent Code is a very good book. It's basically it studies how individuals become experts, and it starts at a young age. So there comes a point where a teacher helps ignite the student. So I can be a piano player, and you get ignited because this teacher not only believes in you, but they give you something that makes you want to continue. And I've seen this over and over in sports where you find somebody at a young age, they get ignited, and then they're able to really use that and transcend. They fall in love with it because somebody ignited them or a group of individuals ignited them. And they talked about so many different things and walks of life, whether that be music, whether that be athletics, whether that be chess. All of these things had really the same outcome as far as they were ignited at a young age, and then they were able to find expertise in it. So
interesting. What did you say it was called?
The Talent Code.
I have to write it down.
It is a fantastic book.
It
looks like I'm gonna fall short on my my reading because I wanted to read 50 books, but you're an avid reader. What type of books? Is there any books that you would recommend to me?
I read a really good book actually, and it was called Breaking the Chains, the Elephant's Dilemma. Actually, The Elephant's Dilemma of Breaking the Chains. It was a really neat book, and I'll have to share with you. The author's name's John, and I can't pronounce his last name. It's with a B. It's like Boxstock, but it's just about reinventing yourself in your career continuously so that you don't lose that flame. Don't go stagnant. Yeah. And like I said, I try to steer clear of those books, but it's a quick read. And I've read it twice in the last year, just because it's just one of those ones that's, it's encouraging. And it just reminds me like, okay, once I do feel stagnant, there are things that I can do to reignite that flame, or, maybe it's time for me to think of a new idea, or, I don't have to just continue to be stuck.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good one.
One book I'll recommend to you is The Full Spirit Workout by Kate Ekman, actually one of my new friends. I had her on the podcast a few weeks ago, but I actually want to introduce you to as well because I think you guys would really hit it off. She is a former broadcaster, went to Columbia, was an elite swimmer at Penn State, and the Full Spirit Workout is basically a 10-step system to shed your self-doubt, strengthen your spiritual core, and create a fun and fulfilling life. She had a bunch of tragedies. One of her best friends and former fiance both committed suicide within a few months period, and she's basically used all of that pain to help her through all of these other aspects of life, and now she's helping other people do the same thing. But I would love to connect you guys because I think there may be an opportunity for you guys to work with each other or just create a friendship. So
Yeah, that's amazing. It's an amazing testimony too, I'm sure. But I'm in a book club and we meet every Tuesday. I'm like, that might be the perfect next book for us. So I will have to check it out.
I'll send an email and connect you guys.
Yeah, that'd be
Because
fabulous.
we've actually connected a half dozen, maybe even a dozen people by now, back and forth, and it's been really cool to meet her. She's a fantastic person.
But that's the fun of it, of making those connections. I mean, what are the chances that you would have met her a year ago or 2 years ago without having technology like this and being able to utilize these platforms that, were created to help you make these relationships, but yet people still don't want to give them a chance.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Do you have anything to plug, whether it be your company or personal brand or anything like that? This would be the time to do it.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Since you're asking, I teach a 12-week course on digital transformation and creating digital culture.
There you
So
go.
if anyone is interested in just understanding how you can build your personal brand and your influence through social media, you can check it out on littlebirdmarketing.com. And then, of course, anyone who wants to just chat or, interact, have a virtual coffee, find me on LinkedIn. That's where I spend. I know it sounds crazy, but that's where I spend most of my social time. Seems to be the platform of choice for me. But yeah, Tacie Avedikian on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with more people. And just if you have a question or anything, just want to introduce yourself, I'd love it.
Great. We'll add that to the show notes. And one more thing before we go, if there was somebody that should be on this show, who would it be and why? And before you answer, you've got to make the connection.
Oh, absolutely. I will. I actually, it's been in my mind trying to connect you with a few people, just based on, like I said, watching your other podcasts and the basketball. But I have a couple of people. I mean, Priscilla McKinney, she's actually the CEO of Little Bird Marketing, and not to just, plug us because we're from the same company, but she is just an amazing and fascinating person in her life story and how she got to be where she is. And now she's, an entrepreneur, and she grew up as a child of missionaries living all over the world. And she's just a great person to have and to connect with. And she has a podcast too, so you guys can maybe swap. But I have a few ideas of people that I think you would really get along well with. So we will have to definitely connect, and I'll share them and intro you.
For sure. Well, that'd be great. Really appreciate you coming on the show. This was awesome. You were a fantastic person, and you're just a ray of light. Like I just love your energy. You did a fantastic job, and you're a natural.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very sweet of you to say. But I appreciate you having me. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Yeah. And